So there's a way to check the integrity of your hierarchies before it gets to that level, okay? And this is how you would do it. So you have these possibilities of errors in your hierarchies, and you can either write some front-end code so the users can't, and validation is all done there, which might be a lengthy process, but I always think that's a great process, a great thing to do, but it might take a lot of time, so maybe you can't do it that way. Given that a lot of times you're just giving the users just a flat spreadsheet and they can make errors, what you can do is before it gets to the cube, you can do some validation against the hierarchies with some TSQL. So what I've done here is done exactly that in a very summarized way. Okay, this isn't a full out what I'd have to do for this particular dimension. I'd have to do more code than this, but it will find an error, or at least direct me to the errors if there are any in the hierarchy referential integrity, like what in this example. So what I'm going to show you right now is I'm going to go back. I'm going to reset everything to normal, so it's back to Florida, and we're going to just rerun that code here to show you that everything is fine. We're just going to start back at the beginning, and then we're going to make our modification or I don't want to say modification, let's say we call it an error that the user made and put Clearwater under Germany. Okay, so and then we're going to look at some code that will pre-validate that before it ever gets to the cube, so we don't have to go that route, so we'll know about where it is. Okay, so right now we just built that cube. So if we look at it and we highlight it here and go to United States and we go to Florida, now we see Clearwater right there. Okay, so we're good to go here. So this is back to its normal referential integrity. It has state where it's good, and now we're going to mess up the referential integrity. Okay, so what we're going to do here is I'm just going to go ahead and unhighlight some code. This is the key for the Clearwater record. I'm going to set it to Germany. I'm not going to set the Hamburg part because that's the part where the integrity fails. Okay, so we're not going to set the Hamburg part. I'm going to set the other two areas though that are kind of miscellaneous here, but will cause other errors. So I'm just going to set those, and we're going to run this. Okay, let's see. It looks like I'm missing a comma. All right, so now I'm going to run this code, and it updated the row, and we know now that that particular record has Germany and Deutsch for the region code, okay, and the other ones are all set fine. But the problem is it's not related. It's related still to Florida, and Florida is related to U.S., so Florida can't be related to both U.S. and Germany at the same time. So what this code is going to do is interrogate that dimension table and run through a couple rules. And the first one is that in this case, where I find the English country region name and the state province code, and I find if there's any combinations that are in conflict. Okay, so you can read through this code, but this is what I'm using to validate this particular area. And this is just for the first level. That's for the state province level. Then I come down on the second rule, and that would hit the country, state, and city conflicts. Okay, so at some point your validation procedure here should go through all the validations to make sure all those referential integrities that your user filled out in Excel or wherever they filled it out all sync up properly. Okay, that's what this whole procedure is for, and each procedure is going to be a little different depending on your business rules you have for your hierarchy. Okay, this is just a snippet of the ones for this example. Okay, so I'm going to run this first code, and like I say, you can use this kind of code. Now what it's saying to me in the final version of this, it says conflict country state combination. So it's telling me there's a conflict again, I'm telling myself this, there's a conflict between the country-state combination. Remember, I don't know what the users just filled out. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to eyeball this, and you might have to even put more elaborate code in if you have really, really big dimensions. But since this is a smaller dimension, I can probably get away with this kind of code. So it says country, state. So I know there's something wrong with this English country region name and state name, right? Something in here is a problem. So I'm looking at this. I see United States, U.S., DE, Deutsch, and Florida. That doesn't look right. So this helps me pinpoint where the problem is. So I can see that there's been somebody went in to Clearwater and put in this country region and set it to Germany for the English, and that's not going to gel as far as referential integrity goes and build in that hierarchy. So it's going to fail once we go over to the cube to try to build it. Okay, so we'll just try to build it. Just like I said, it's going to fail, and I'm going to just run it just to keep everyone making sure you see that. And we're going to get the error that we had before. I'm just going to do an update this time. Should error out too. It does. Should give us the same error. Okay, this is a little different one. An error occurred while the city attribute of the geography dimension. So it's pointing to the hierarchy piece of this whole thing. Again, that's why you want to run that code. You could then go and look through city, and you have to really interrogate the data. It doesn't tell you a lot about which one it is. Let me just double check that to make sure we have the right one there. See, it doesn't even tell you which part of it is. So if you have a 500,000 row table and you have hierarchies in it, and your 500,000 row dimension table, and you have hierarchies all over the place in it, this error is going to be really tough to pinpoint. So that's why you have to kind of do defensive programming and validation prior to this point, so you don't get stuck into this mess. Okay, or have your consultant write that code so you don't get trapped into here, or at least try not to get trapped into there. Okay, so that's that. So basically, we could come back now through that code, and we've identified the problem. Pretty much, we'd see that this doesn't make sense, right? This Germany and Deutsch with Florida, we can see that doesn't make sense. So we can go in and just change that back, and we're going to be good to go. So I'm going to just go in. I'm just going to change it back. I have the Florida all set up here. I'm just going to update it. It's going to set it to United States and US again, and I hit F5. It executes. I come back over here. I run my code, and this is the way you want your code to run, so that if nothing comes back, your ETL just keeps on running, and you go to the build stage of your cube, and everything should be fine, and your hierarchies then. If it's not then you probably have to come back to your code and rewrite some of your validation code. All right, so if we change the whole record with a Hamburg and everything like we did through our example before, okay, so I'll uncheck that. Okay, and we're going to run the whole thing now. I'm going to update the whole thing correctly, in case Clearwater got rearranged to the German country. And now when I run my code over here, my validation code, I get nothing and everything works. So everything works here because there's no bad offending rows coming back. And so then I come back over to my my dimension to build it. And once you build, if you can't build the dimension and it errors, you're not building a cube, because that's going to fail the cube. You have to have your dimensions built first. So that processed correctly, and so we're good to go. So if you come back in here, and now we change that all to Germany, which logically is incorrect, but as far as the cube is concerned, the logic, the rules are correct. So here's Hamburg. We go to Hamburg, and we can see Clearwater now under there because we had to reset it up properly, at least as far as referential integrity goes. Okay, so the bottom line to this whole thing is your hierarchies are important. They can give you big problems. the cube builder and the dimension builder is not your best friend in this situation. It will help a little bit to maybe point to it. You have to be cognizant of this problem early, like now in your learning experience, so when you come in to get that error, you kind of know a lot better how to identify it, because it might take days to solve that problem, and you might have a lot of heartburn from it. You might have heartburn even when you know how to solve the problem, but without even knowing what the problem is, heartburn is not going to be any fun. Okay, well, thanks a lot for watching, and I hope this helped you.